Hi everyone. So I'll be talking to you about our paper, Checking, Nudging, or Scoring, Evaluating Email Security Tools, which is a paper very much situated in the space of improving human decision-making when it comes to email legitimacy. So why did we decide to do this? Is because we see that even though we have a lot of automated detection tools for phishing emails, there's still a small proportion of emails that goes through to the user. And therefore, you might know that there are a lot of conventional phishing awareness trainings that try to improve people's ability to detect these kinds of phishing emails. So in terms of usable security solutions for phishing detection, most of them are actually focused on some form of training. It's either your typical in-class training or even up to serious games. But we haven't seen so much in the literature that tries to develop tools that people can use whilst they actually browse their emails. And in fact, those conventional training methods seem to have some limits as to how much they can actually improve people's abilities. One of our hypotheses is that it's because they don't actually guide users whilst they are on the task. So we thought maybe we can explore these two different concepts. So one is the concept of a nudge, also indicated by Friends et al. Last year. And there's the second idea of having sort of a checking tool. So there has been some work around phishing detection where people have developed user tooltips. So instead of clicking on the link that you find in the email and going directly to that website, it would show you, for instance, a report of how suspicious that link might actually be before you decide whether to actually go to that website. So we thought maybe we can take that concept and help people parse common technical indicators in emails to be better at detecting phishing. So the main question for the study was how usable are these nudging or checking tools that we can think of? And we came up with these three particular types of designs. The first one is what we call a check button, which when you click on a button and you're viewing a particular email, it would give you an overview of the different details that we want people to check when an email is potentially malicious. So it would give you an overview of what are the actual sender details, what is, for instance, the domain of the email address, and does that match up with other links that you might find in that email. The objective here was really to assist the user when in doubt, both in the case of when the email was actually malicious, but also when the email might just look suspicious, but it's not necessarily phishing. And then it would give you a bit of advice on how to double check certain things when there are, for instance, mismatching sender details. The second idea is what we call the collegiate phishing report nudge, which very much relies on a social cue where we would have a banner, for instance, at the top of the inbox that says, hey, this email was reported as suspicious today by one of your colleagues, so click here to check out what it was about. And the objective there was really to raise people's awareness that there might be phishing emails coming their way. And it shows you, indeed, an annotated example of an email. I'll show you the actual examples of what these things look like later. And then the third type of tool that we evaluated was a suspicion score nudge. Again, with the intention to raise people's awareness of phishing threats. And in this case, when you were viewing an email, it would present a warning banner at the top of it saying, are you sure you can trust this email? And it showed a suspicion score, as the name implies, with some recommended user actions. So to test how usable indeed these three different designs were, we came up with a qualitative study design. So we had people one by one in a session where we literally asked them, hey, this is a simulated inbox with a bunch of emails. Can you just sort through these whilst reasoning out loud about exactly what you're doing, what you're looking at, why you're clicking on something. And then based on all these out loud reasonings, we did thematic analysis with a question again in mind, how do these tools that we created affect people's behaviors when they go through this inbox? So they always started with the control inbox. It is modeled after the Outlook web email client, where you don't see any of our tools yet. Then after 7 minutes, they go to the next one with first the checking tool, and then the third inbox that would be, for instance, the nudge, and the fourth inbox they would see is the last one. We open sourced the Outlook Inbox Simulator. If you want to check it out, it's on this link. I'm still working on the documentation though, so apologies for that. And if you want to check out our research protocol, it's also on the Open Science Framework. So our goal was really to provide a formative evaluation of these 3 different tools. So our main question was really, how do these tools affect users' email processing behaviors, where we contrast the out loud reasonings of people when they were actually using those tools versus when they did not have any additional tools. Then I want to note that when there were 5 people that gave us exactly the same kind of feedback on either of the tools, we decided to update this design a little bit and then go to the next iteration of the design. So in total, we had 27 professional email users from UCL, about half identified as male. They were relatively young, and about 2/3 recalled completing a cybersecurity training, and actually about 1/3 also studied a technical subject. Like I said before, every individual had like 1 session on their own, and we ran everything consecutively, and the ethics were approved by our department. Now, this gives you a flavor of what that simulated inbox environment was like. It's, again, modeled after the Outlook web client, where you see a bunch of emails here on the left. If you click on either of them, it would be viewed there on the right. And people only had 5 different actions that they could choose from that you see in the top. It's either replying, forwarding, deleting, archiving, or junk. And in total, they saw 33 emails that were legitimate and 6 that were phishing. And they were all tailored to an academic context because all of our participants came from UCL. So for the first tool, the check button, we actually ended up with 4 different iterations. So at least 5 people saw each iteration. Did you see A, B, C, D here? So we started here in panel A. I know it's a little bit small, but at the very top, next to the junk button, you had a button that said check email. And then when you hover over that, you see 3 different options. We started out with scan sender details, scan for URLs, and the third one was actually checking for past correspondence with that particular sender's email address. And then when people clicked on either of those things, we would present them the overview of the parsed details. Now we found actually that people largely ignored this button in the first iteration, and if they actually interacted with them, they were a little bit flustered about what they actually had to do with that type of detail. And some people actually remarked, why do you have this in 3 different buttons? It's too much to care for. So then in the second iteration, we thought, okay, let's just have 1 button with all the information presented in that 1 overview. But then a lot of people started saying, well, this information is too much. It's like hard to parse. I don't even want to start reading it. So we thought maybe in the third iteration, let's structure the information a little bit more and highlight important parts here in boldface text, for instance. Maybe that helps. But again, people didn't really want to engage with that type of information. But there were quite a number of people that said, but this past correspondence portion that shows you what emails I've received from this sender in the past is quite helpful. So to our surprise, actually, we only kept the past correspondence check and found that people overwhelmingly responded very positively to this. So for the second tool, the collegiate phishing report nudge, we started out with a banner at the very top, and then if people clicked on it, this example email would pop up with a list of the suspicious signals that you would find in this email. But people, again, didn't really engage much with this nudge because they didn't think it was relevant to them, or they just wanted to get the primary task of processing those emails done. So we thought, okay, let's kind of force you to see the example phishing email by just letting it pop up when you go to that inbox. But people found it so disruptive that we had to go to the last iteration here in C, where we just had the email look like there was another unread email at the very top of your inbox. So when people click on there, we show the annotations of the suspicious signals in this email more clearly with these different colors, and that line that says this email has been reported by one of your colleagues here in red. Then the third one, the suspicion score nudge, was by far the most positively received tool. So we only had 2 iterations for that reason. We kept it fairly simple. It's a warning banner on top of a suspicious email, which explains the exact score, the scale of the score, and it gives people 2 recommendations of things to do to check if indeed that email was to be trusted. And then over the course of the first 3 iterations, we found that people didn't really read so much the second and third lines in this first design. So we thought maybe we can highlight that piece of advice at least a little bit more by having a bit more white space here and making it bold-faced. But again, overall, we found that people did not engage so much with more technical or detailed information pertaining to security issues. And that is, in fact, also one of our main findings. So overall, after the task, we asked which of these 3 designs did you find most useful? And by far, most people said it was the suspicion score nudge, and then the runner-up was the past correspondence check part of the check button, and some people said both of these were actually most useful. So then overall, we find that in terms of the usability of security information, people did not really engage with that technical details so much. They often find it too difficult to understand, even though 2/3 of our participants actually completed cybersecurity training before, so that was a bit surprising. And what people did adopt was those intuitive cues like past correspondence checks regarding email legitimacy. Secondly, it was very clear that there's sort of a trade-off, it seems, between productivity and security. So people didn't engage so much with tools that didn't seem so relevant to get the primary email processing task done. So you can think again of that collegiate phishing report that pops up. People found that rather annoying, so they didn't even want to start reading the useful content in there. So that's something to keep in mind for future development. Thirdly, some users actually had some concerns about false positives. So with that suspicion score nudge, some people reasoned out loud that these emails might be flagged as suspicious, but because of, for instance, one of their emails was from a Fujian Chinese mentorship program, which actually was malicious. But our participant happened to be from an Asian background and said, well, there could be algorithmic bias here, right? Because there are many spam emails that come from Chinese sources. So I'm actually going to trust this email because I don't really think this is actually suspicious. So that's to note that even though in most cases the suspicion score nudge helped people think actively about the legitimacy of emails, they may not fully prevent people arriving at wrong conclusions. And lastly, there was large ignorance towards the security features overall in the first iterations, because when people find the functionality unclear or unnecessarily, especially in the context of this primary versus secondary tasks in email processing, they tend to not engage with that. So as a conclusion, for further developments on email security tool developments, We are saying that these email security tools can actually be usable and effective if first they rather highlight cues of desired or intuitive cues rather than undesired, like phishing specific details, which we derived from the past correspondence check. Secondly, we're saying that these kinds of tools should enhance people's existing behaviors. So again, deriving from the past correspondence check response, that very much aligned with how people would generally try to infer the legitimacy of emails, whereas providing more technical details really didn't help. And lastly, do not interfere with people's productivity. I do highly encourage you to look up the paper to read the details. I just gave you a summary here, but there's actually much more in the paper. You can scan the QR code if you want, or walk up to me after this talk.